There is an unexpected and concerning trend that has surfaced as Japan's population continues to age at a drastic pace. An increasing number of senior citizens are becoming criminals. Over the past 20 years, there has been an increase in the frequency of shoplifting, stealing, and other small-time crimes among people who are 65 and older. This problem isn't unique to Japan, though, as nations all across the world are starting to experience comparable difficulties. But why is this happening? Well, let's examine the situation. Japan is seeing the greatest demographic change in history, with its population aging more quickly than that of any other nation. Current statistics show that about 30% of Japan's population is over 65, a number that is still rising. Because the nation has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, together with a high life expectancy, the median age is growing quickly. Consequently, Japan is confronted with the task of providing care for an aging population while managing a declining labor force. Wide-ranging economic and social ramifications of this demographic mismatch place tremendous strain on the nation's public budget and pension system. Now, over the past 20 years, there's been a noticeable yet concerning trend in Japan: an increase in crimes perpetrated by the elderly. Japan is renowned for having low overall crime rates. However, the percentage of offenses affecting those 65 and older has increased significantly. In 1997, 5% of all convictions were for felonies. This percentage increased to above 20% by 2017, and the data in 2021 shows that over a 25-year period, the rate of senior crime has increased fivefold. In a nation where social peace and respect for the elderly are firmly ingrained virtues, this increase is especially fascinating. Most crimes committed by elderly people are small-time, non-violent ones, with theft being the most prevalent form. Merely 70% of senior criminals are apprehended for pilfering inexpensive products like groceries, apparel, or home furnishings. These thefts are often little, involving a few pieces of fruit, a loaf of bread, or some toiletries. For a lot of people, this is an act of necessity rather than criminal intent. Some people even admit outright that they steal in order to get imprisoned, since jail provides them with a place to live, food, and a feeling of company that they cannot have outside of it. The surge of senior offenses is caused by several things, the primary one being poverty. In Japan, many elderly individuals rely on meager fixed incomes, mostly from state pensions that are not enough to meet their basic needs. The basic pension system has not kept up with the reality of contemporary Japan, since it was created during a time when life expectancy was shorter and extended family assistance was more common. Many seniors are struggling to make ends meet as a result of the constant increase in rent, electricity, food prices, and healthcare expenditures. As a result, the number of older persons who view crime as a viable means of surviving is rising. Another issue is social isolation. Many older people in Japan are finding themselves living alone as the country's conventional family arrangements shift, especially in rural regions and on the outskirts of large towns. Older individuals have fewer social networks and support systems as younger generations move away for employment and more nuclear households emerge. Because of the ensuing extreme loneliness, some people turn to crime or jail as a way to at least interact with people. Health-related concerns are also quite important. Many elderly criminals have mental health issues, such as dementia or physical illnesses. The elderly population in Japan is seeing an increase in cognitive problems, which can cause impulsive actions or disorientation and increase the risk of small-time criminality. If you don't have family support or access to proper healthcare, you might think jail is the best location to get the treatment you need, even if it's a restricted setting. Some people find that the regimented life of incarceration, complete with social contact, healthcare, and regular meals, is more enticing than the uncertainty and loneliness they experience outside. This is a serious issue in Japan, as the social safety nets are not built to handle the demands of an aging population. The continuance of health issues, social isolation, and economic instability result in a situation where older people perceive crime as a reasonable way to ensure their survival, or at least a higher quality of life. Although many nations deal with comparable challenges related to an aging population, Japan's situation is distinct because of the country's fast demographic changes, as well as the social and cultural aspects that make solving these concerns especially difficult. Let's even get deeper. There are many elderly people in Japan who believe that crime is the only way to survive. One example is 69-year-old Toshio Takada, who became impoverished and turned to crime. Toshio made the decision to commit larceny in order to have a roof over his head because he had no family, no money, and nowhere to go. His first transgression was taking a bicycle, which he turned in with the intention of being sent to prison, where he would be able to live for free. Since then, Toshio has committed many offenses and acknowledged that imprisonment gives him access to resources like food, housing, and a feeling of community that he is unable to get outside. Reoffending has been Toshio's go-to tactic for preserving stability in a life that would otherwise be chaotic and difficult. There is another 70-year-old woman who we will call Keiko for privacy, who presents a comparable tale from a different angle. Following a marital breakup, Keiko was left without a place to live and without a source of income. With no other option, she started stealing minor goods and food from stores. The urgency is evident for women like Keiko, who frequently have fewer chances to start again after going through personal problems. Many older women who commit crimes, some of them as late as their 80s, do it merely to make ends meet. Their recurrent transgressions are also often motivated by continuous financial difficulties. For some of them, jail seems like a safe haven, a place where they can get food, shelter, and, for a little while, escape the daily reality of being poor. But is this the case in other countries? Elderly crime is not limited to Japan. It's becoming an increasingly significant issue in many other nations, such as the US, the UK, and several European nations. The pattern and causes of these crimes, however, differ, reflecting the unique social, economic, and cultural background of each nation. Over the past few decades, there have been a notable growth in the number of elderly convicts in the United States. In 1991, the proportion of inmates who were 55 years of age or older was around 3%. That percentage increased to 15% by 2021, a 500% increase in the number of senior inmates. In contrast to Japan, where senior criminals often commit minor offenses like theft, older Americans conduct a wide range of crimes. These include infractions of lesser gravity as well as more significant ones like drug-related accusations, fraud, and even violent felonies. But we can partially blame the practices of the American judicial system, which have traditionally enforced lengthier terms and so resulted in an aged jail population. However, there are additional economic considerations in the US, similar to their counterparts in Japan. Many elderly Americans experience financial instability, particularly those who are totally dependent on Social Security or do not have sufficient retirement savings. This insecurity is exacerbated by growing healthcare expenditures, housing instability, and a lack of work possibilities for the elderly. But a sizable percentage of senior criminals are still behind bars because of life sentences or other heavy penalties during the 1980s and 1990s tough on crime era. Due to this, the number of elderly pensioners in the system has increased, even though they might not have been committing any new crimes. Even if the tendency is not as strong as it is in the US or Japan, senior crime is rising in the UK as well. Like Japan, the UK has witnessed a rise in petty crimes committed by senior citizens, including stealing and shoplifting. Due to inadequate pension payments and growing living expenses, retirees are finding it difficult to make ends meet, which contributes to many crimes. Another important element is social isolation, especially for older men who may feel more and more cut off from their communities. The government of the United Kingdom has acknowledged this problem and is investigating alternatives to prison that are specifically designed for elderly offenders, such as community service and restorative justice initiatives. Across Europe, several nations have taken distinct ways when it comes to combating senior crime. Rehabilitation has been a priority over punishment in Scandinavian nations like Sweden and Denmark. These nations prioritize offering possibilities for reintegration into society, mental health treatments, and social support. Because of this, compared to other industrialized countries, their rates of senior crime have remained relatively low. The Scandinavian model is frequently used as an illustration of how extensive social welfare programs and a restorative justice system may reduce crime among vulnerable groups, such as the elderly. It's evident that a common factor propelling elderly crimes in many nations is economic uncertainty. More than simply harsh measures are needed to address this problem. Significant advancements in social safety nets, including more sufficient pension plans, reasonably priced healthcare, and availability to inexpensive housing. On the other hand, investing in social welfare programs has been shown to effectively lower crime rates among the elderly in countries like Sweden and Denmark, providing other countries with a workable model. And although the severity and speed of Japan's demographic changes make it unique, other nations dealing with comparable issues have made progress that Japan may emulate. Japan and others might establish more effective measures to deter senior crime and provide better services for their aged inhabitants by examining how other countries handle the economic, social, and psychological demands of their aging population. The secret is realizing that, more often than not, elderly crime is not so much about the criminal intent as it is about larger society mechanisms failing to care for its most vulnerable members. So what do you think about the growing incidences of elderly criminality in Japan and other nations? Do you think this issue is resolvable in the current state of affairs? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you think this video was helpful, remember to give it a thumbs up. And for more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.